Oh, the weather ain't too good. This is Monday morning and almost the end of August. One more day to go and that's it. We've had about 3 days of overcast weather and so not so good. Checked out the newspapers before I left today and noticed that the Herald Sun has probably reduced the rhetoric against average Victorian citizens and is toning it down a bit, which is good because they seem to basically be total cheer squad material for Andrew's government, which is not healthy for a newspaper. Also crowing about how good their circulation is and everything. They say that they're selling more papers and also doing better online. So they're happy because it's all about money. And as I said, I think that's why they're taking the government line, because I think that's probably the best bet for their readership, but I don't know about that. I'm getting the impression that things are starting to change there. And if you go to the Daily Mail, you generally get a much better coverage, I think, than from Herald Sun, which is a local Victorian paper. The British tabloid Daily Mail seems to do a better job, in my opinion. And they're reporting more information because they're outlining how there has been more protests in Broadmeadows this time, a northern Melbourne suburb, and they were just walking, but the cops, of course, I think there was about 4 arrests because they were curfew breakers apparently. So I think it seems like the cops are really getting off on this power trip they're on at the moment, which I find very worrying. It just shows, give them a little bit of extra power and it goes to their heads. And it's not a good thing in my opinion. And I think Victorians are getting a bit fed up with the whole deal because there seems to be no end to this lockdown stuff. And that's why someone like Sam Newman, I think, who's got a fairly good sense of the public feeling, has decided to ask people to come out and demonstrate, have 250,000 people demonstrate against the lockdowns. I don't know if you have any luck to that extent, that might be pushing it, but at least he's having a go. And I like the fact that at least he's standing up. I mean, he's made a career out of it, admittedly. He's made money out of being the sort of the rebel, the larrikin, but there's so few of them in Australia now. It's very depressing to me that there's that old style larrikin attitude seems to have basically evaporated, and it's good to see someone like Sam Newman take a stand because he has got a bit of clout. I mean, you either love him or you hate him. He's that sort of a character. I'm actually sort of midway because I think he's important because he actually does signpost some issues that just get swept under the carpet normally. And most Victorians seem to be very docile at the moment and are kowtowing to authority way too much, in my opinion. They're very scared, of course. The scare campaign regarding the COVID situation has worked a treat. And there are dangers with it, but let's be honest, the death toll is not the same as the Spanish flu or any other major pandemic. It's something to be aware of. It's something to avoid, obviously, and I'm in a high risk group, so I know that more than most people. And I'm not being stupid about it. I'm modifying my behaviour, but the extent of these lockdowns and the damage they're doing to people's lives in general is just beyond the pale. And that's actually well illustrated by articles in the Australian, actually it's news.com.au. It's the online section of News Corp. Normally it's a fairly lefty type sort of site, but this is actually their finance reporter talking on this particular topic, and there's some very frightening figures there. One that really stood out to me, and there's a couple that stood out to me, the 400,000 people who are on the dole in Victoria. That's a worrying figure, obviously. The other one is that disposable income is down 30% in Victoria, and it's only down 2% in New South Wales. well, I think, or it's the rest of Australia. I'm not sure. It's got, you got it up on screen anyway, but it's a huge contrast between Victoria and other states, and that is a real worry. I think Victoria is going to, like I said, I predicted before, this lockdown is just going to exacerbate the misery in that state. It's going to take them a long time to get out of this, and I think it's time to get out in the streets and voice your dissent and try to get these lockdowns eased as fast as possible, because the amount of damage they're doing to people mentally and physically is far greater than any virus. I know people don't believe it, but it's easy to get scared by exact figures about the medical aspect of it. That's easy to digest, but to look at the other casualties of this sort of a policy, well, you know, it's more subtle, and you have to really look at the nuances of what's going on. And I'm positive that the suicide rate has gone up substantially. That just does with unemployment anyway. That's a statistical fact, that there's a correlation between suicide and unemployment. There's the first bike rider for the day down Lily Creek. He actually waved and said hello, which is nice. It is a nice thing of being up here in far north Queensland. It's definitely more relaxed and friendlier. So. And of course, the obvious advantage is I'm not in Victoria. That's patently obvious at the moment. Yeah. So the other time bomb financially is the JobKeeper stuff. Yeah. The Victorians are going to apparently take a hit of at the end of September. JobKeeper is going to be reduced, and as a consequence of that, I think people who are unemployed are going to receive a $300 drop per fortnight, so that's going to hurt. And it's also the general JobKeeper subsidies dropping as well by the same amount, and it will be dropping again in stages over the next few months. But the first one will be the end of September. That's when we'll be looking at the stats after that to see what the result of that will be. So we're in for a lot more pain ahead, and that's why Andrew's prolonging this lockdown, he talks about vague concepts such as his plan for the future of locking down. There is no plan. He gave no specifics. He's just basically playing with people's emotions. I think it's really pathetic and very dangerous and very callous for him to do that. And he's been called out for it, but he should really be much more accountable than he has been. And given the fragile nature of the Victorian economy right now, with the obvious hike in unemployment, they're not going to get these overseas students there in numbers in the short term. So there's going to be a huge gap right in the centre of the city, the CBD. People who are who are landlords would be suffering big time, because the rental situation would be diabolical there. There'd be a lot of empty units in the centre of Melbourne. So yeah, it's pretty ugly. It's not good. So just hope and pray that sanity prevails and they do ease restrictions. It's funny things. Jacinda Ardern, I think Ardern. I never can get her name right. So not as bad as Palaszczuk, mind you, as far as names is concerned. But they're pretty well twin sisters when it comes to ideology, I'd imagine. All leftists. Well, Andrews is probably closer to Ardern than Palaszczuk, but they're all pretty bad. But yeah, Ardern's coming up with the same line about how there's no guarantee that they're not going to go back to the strict lockdown that they had recently. They've just eased it apparently. She's calling it 2.5. What the hell does that mean? So it sounds like the sort of stuff they did in Spain. They had all these ridiculous levels of lockdown, just confused the crap out of people. I'm worried that she'll get back in power, which is very bad for New Zealanders, in my opinion. I think they may not suffer as much as Victorians, but I think the economy will take a bit of a hit there. So we'll see. It's been drizzling virtually since I left home. So it's quite lush here. See, there's all the lilies. Lily Creek by name and Lily Creek by nature at the moment. Very healthy. There's been a lot of water up here. And we haven't got the dams to actually harvest the water, which is a pain, but oh dear. One of these days common sense will prevail. We should really be an agricultural powerhouse up here, but if you don't harvest the water, well, you can't have your crops, can you? Anyway, that's probably enough of me rambling. Again, the usual applies. If could you please give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, comment if you've got any opinions, please air them, doesn't matter what they are. And think about subscribing, although I'm now about 504 subscribers, so doing okay, but you know, the more the merrier, as they say. So yep, thanks again for all the support, and I hope where you are it's drier than here right now.